Ladies and gentlemen, stand up and get loud for the greatest talk show in television history, everybody.
Welcome, everybody, to Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. This is episode 366. We are recording on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. My name is Nick, and with me this week is Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Going pretty good.
Excellent. Tonight, we're going to be talking NXT Takeover Chicago, Backlash, Chicago, Jinder Mahal, Chicago, tag teams, and did I say we're talking about Chicago? Because it seemed like commentary did ad nauseum.
And when you have a drinking role attached to that word, it suddenly makes things very, very arduous.
So arduous. Before we get into the events that took place this weekend, let's talk about a couple of news stories that broke since our last recording. The WWE has announced officially the dates for the rumored women's tournament, and it's going to be called the Mae Young Classic. It's going to be taking place on Thursday, July 13th and Friday, July 14th. No announcements yet on the participants or any of the details beyond that. It's airing from Full Sail. Boo. But I fully expect that we're going to start getting names dropped pretty soon. Right off the bat, Adam, do you have any guesses as to who's going to be part of it?
Oh, well, the Four Horsewomen for sure, right? Or is it just women outside of the current women's divisions that are participating?
I imagine that it's going to include at least the NXT women. I would guess that we're not going to be seeing any current main roster talent.
Okay.
It seems like it's modeled very much after the Cruiserweight Classic. So, yeah, I'm guessing we're going to be seeing people like Liv Morgan, Ember Moon, Aaliyah, Asuka probably.
Sure.
As far as women outside of the WWE, which again, if they're pulling as much from the Cruiserweight Classic as I think they are, I would imagine it's going to be at least probably half and half.
Right.
I could see Candice LeRae being part of it. Given that she was actually part of the number one contenders battle royal.
Right.
Let's see. Rachel Evers, formerly known as Rachel Ellering.
Okay. What's the name of the chick that does like the MMA stuff? I'm sure she'll be involved.
Yeah, most likely. She's Sonya Deville now.
Okay.
Formerly Daria Baronato. I'm not exactly sure why they changed the name. I thought it was fine, but and with that in mind, we'll probably see Lacey Evans, the ex-Marine.
Okay.
Do you think we'll be seeing Tessa Blanchard?
I mean, anything's possible, you know. I don't know how far along she is in her training. Because she is, you know, another second-gen star, and they tend to go just pretty much straight into the WWE system. Without really working too many indies or, you know, so I don't know how far along in her training she is, but if it's in a tournament like this, like even in a losing effort, like it would be a good showcase for her. So I don't see a tremendous downside. I mean, you know, out of, you know, however many participants, have they announced exactly how many there's going to be?
Yeah, 32.
Okay. So out of 32 participants, there's got to be 31 losers, you know, unfortunately, but you know, it's still good exposure. I mean, freaking Cedric Alexander also lost. And I mean, he probably got one of the best ovations of the Cruiserweight Classic. So
absolutely.
I see no reason not to include her.
Yeah, it's kind of surprisingly a year ago, nobody's really talking about Tessa Blanchard, but now she's pretty well traveled. She just recently came off a tour with Stardom over in Japan. Part of a tag team with Jessica Havoc, and she's been in Beyond Wrestling. I think she's worked PWG. I'm not entirely sure. I know she did work a dark match at Lucha Underground with Prince Puma. So yeah, I think it would actually be kind of weird if she didn't show up.
You think we might see any veteran women's indie stars, like maybe Lufisto or man, I forgot their names. The two women that were part of the BDK in Chikara. Either of them, Daisy Hayes, and I think the other one was Sara Del Rey.
Yeah, I think I would be a little surprised to see Sara Del Rey in the Classic, just because she is so much of a fixture in the training department. Right. I absolutely wouldn't say no, but yeah, of those three you mentioned, I think Sara Del Rey would be the most likely.
Sure.
It would be pretty neat to see Lufisto in the Classic. I don't know if Daisy Hayes is still working or not, but she's definitely got the tenure and the pedigree to back to vouch for her.
Yeah, sure.
As far as other prospective entrants, the two that I am thinking of right now are Kairi Hojo and Io Shirai. Of course, Io Shirai was just recently announced as having signed with the WWE. As far as Hojo goes, she's been officially signed for a little while now, and she's working through the last of her shows with Stardom. But yeah, I think that pretty much hits the big names, or at least the likely names thus far. There's probably going to be a few curveballs, of course, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more official word on this.
Same.
Transitioning from the Mae Young Classic, there's been a little more women's news in professional wrestling. Tonight on SmackDown, Shane McMahon is set to make an announcement regarding Money in the Bank, which is the next SmackDown pay-per-view coming up in the next month or so. Of course, we're going to be seeing the standard Money in the Bank match for the number one not number one contendership technically, but a shot at the WWE Championship. But it's being rumored very strongly that we're also going to be seeing a women's Money in the Bank ladder match for a shot at the SmackDown Women's Championship. Right off the bat, how likely does that strike you? Does it seem like this is first of all, the right brand for this showcase? Do you think we're going to be seeing a great match? Like, how do you see ladies like Charlotte, Carmella, and Natalya in a ladder match?
I definitely think Charlotte would fare well in a ladder match. Seeing that, I mean, as fearful as I would be to see it, I would also be extremely excited to see her moonsault off the top of a 20-foot ladder. I think that Carmella would do fairly well in a ladder match. I think that Naomi would do fairly well in a ladder match. Even Becky. I think the two women that might struggle a little bit might be Tamina and Natalya. Tamina, I could see using the ladder stipulation as more of a brute strength tactic, which might suit her. Natalya, I think, with the technical aspect, might have the hardest time adjusting to such a stipulation. But, I mean, she is still a veteran, and I know she's really good at adapting to new situations. So I don't think she would be completely at a loss. Just knowing her style, I think it would probably mesh the least well with a ladder match stipulation.
I think you're pretty much spot on with that. I see Becky and Carmella doing the best out of all five of them, assuming it is still only five by the time Money in the Bank rolls around. And I think you're right on the money with Tamina essentially taking on the Authors of Pain role in this ladder match. Like, you didn't see them go up the ladder much until it was time for them to do what they did. But they used those bastards like weapons, like very few tag teams I've seen before. So I think that is definitely going to be the role that Tamina plays. And I can kind of see Natalya playing that same role too. You know, she is one of the bigger ladies in this match, or this potential match at least. She's not quite as big as Tamina. So I think, we might be seeing a spot or two from her. At least as much from Charlotte, I would think. But yeah, assuming that this is the plan moving forward, I absolutely think this is the right brand to do it. Not to take anything away from girls like Bayley and Alexa Bliss and Mickie James, but the SmackDown women's roster feels more like a little bit more like, in my mind, what you had with the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. Like, they just work better together, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. It's also being the same sentiment is also being echoed in the live chat. Red Mag actually saying, I'm actually glad it will be a SmackDown ladder match. I think it'll give the women on SmackDown a better way to show off their skills and getting creative, which I 100% agree with both of you on. Raw kind of has and always has had, even before the brand split, sort of a pedigree to it. You know, that in the back of one's mind, at least from a kayfabe perspective, the best of the best make it on Raw. It's only recently that SmackDown is very has, in my opinion, surpassed that pedigree, but you know, at least has been vying for the right to have earned that pedigree. And I think the SmackDown Women's division has always kind of had that sort of dark cloud hanging over it. Not to say that any of the women that compete aren't at the same level as Raw women, but I think because just for the dint of the fact that they are on SmackDown, people kind of look at that division as slightly lesser than the equal division on Raw. So I think this is definitely also, in addition to taking advantage of the talent on SmackDown, I think it's also a good way for them to attempt to, you know, break out of that mold and attempt to, you know, showcase that, you know, just because Raw is considered the flagship show on WWE doesn't necessarily mean that all the best talent are there. So I really hope that this rumor is true.
Absolutely. And our final news story of the night is taking a little bit of a downward turn. WhatCulture Pro Wrestling recently announced that they are canceling their weekly show Loaded. And the main reason behind that is the ongoing story that has been YouTube and its changes to their algorithm about what content is advertiser friendly. As far as pro wrestling goes, YouTube decided that was decidedly not advertiser friendly, and that's affected a lot of outlets from the WWE on down as far as ad revenue gained from their videos. In the WhatCulture video that they released on the subject, they talked about the match between Rey Mysterio and Alberto El Patron garnering over 1 million views. And you would think that the ad revenue would kind of match that, but instead, you know, they got $43 from it. And that to me is insane. It shows a remarkable lack of awareness on the part of Google as a whole, you know, deciding that pro wrestling as a whole is not suitable for children, not suitable for the general public. It's not advertiser friendly. That seems very backwards to me. And I don't know what the answer is. YouTube has had a lot of problems over the years with the way they determine algorithms, like what constitutes copyright infringement, what is fair use, things of this nature. And now this is just added onto the pile. I don't know what the right answer is, but I feel like the YouTube definitely needs to do better.
Hands down, agree. There's been so many different controversies about how the YouTube algorithm works. And honestly, in somewhat of a defense of YouTube, I think they're really trying to, you know, to peg down all of their rulings and stuff like that. But even now, even though it's been, you know, over 10 years old, like it's still such a new medium of entertainment. And there's still so many things, so many, you know, legal bugs that you have to work out, and even technical bugs that you have to work out, that it's really tough to kind of nail all that down. I do definitely think that at this point, YouTube really should be working on doing that, because right now they're kind of bent to the whim of the advertisers that they serve. And because of that, they, you know, not just WhatCulture, but quite a few content producers for YouTube get the shaft, you know, because they don't, even though they do, I believe, owe their creators so much in getting them attention and providing them essentially with free content, because YouTube doesn't directly pay them for their content. They get paid, again, through the advertisement revenue. So it's really about time that YouTube, you know, I think stands its own ground and says, look, this is us as a company. We have, you know, this much in allocations and equity, and you know, we aren't going to be pushed around just because of, you know, advertisements and this and that and the other thing. This is the law of our land, and I do think YouTube really needs to do that. As far as WhatCulture goes, it is unfortunate to see Loaded go away. I personally was usually more attracted to their essentially pay-per-view type cards, such as True Destiny, which usually go off of a paid premium service that I think will kind of cover any of their YouTube losses. But it is quite a shame. And WhatCulture still has all their content. You know, they just released their comic book site, and they just released their channel, comic book channel. They still have their main channel that focuses on kind of like movies, TV, and just other general cultural entertainment value pieces that I don't think they're going to be too hurt financially, but from a storytelling and enrichment perspective, especially considering like all the stuff that Joe Hendry's doing, The Rock, come on, be a cool guy, fucking go to WhatCulture and fucking wrestle Joe Hendry for the title, please. I'm begging you, man. I'm begging you. I will do questionably almost anything to get that to happen. Please, please, please make it happen. Outside of that, though, I think that WhatCulture is going to be okay. Their world tournament's still going strong. They still have their monthly things going strong with the paid premiums. And if you guys are fans of theirs as much as you are fans of ours, please at least go check out their next show and, you know, show them some love outside of YouTube, because they really deserve it. They put on a lot of really high quality, entertaining things when it comes to wrestling. And I think they're deserving of your money.
Yeah, I think a lot of that falls to is support your indies. I definitely ought to be doing a better job of it. The North Carolina indie scene is springing up again. You know, you've got PWX. I think Omega's still around out east. And PWX especially, they've been making more partnerships with other promotions. So out west, obviously there's PWG. There's Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Elsewhere is AIW, AAW, CZW, like all those places. Like, find your local indie and support them, because that's where WWE's looking, and they're not gonna find people at podunk shows with 5 people in the audience. Like, there's more wrestlers than audience members. Like, go support them. Go make your favorite wrestlers look good.
Agreed. And I mean, it's a cool feather in the cap. I know I haven't been to PWG in years, but getting to see, you know, Bryan Danielson at the time in an intimate crowd of 1,000 or less, you know, getting to sing Final Countdown along with him coming down to the ring, it's a fun, great experience. I've yet to actually ever attend a Battle of Los Angeles, and I would like to rectify that this year. So I definitely want to follow that same advice. Support your favorite indies guys. They more than, you know, any national promotion that you'll ever watch, desperately need the revenue and business to stay afloat. So if there's guys that you like that you want to see make it to WWE, make sure that you're supporting them on the indie scene, because that's the only way they're going to stay afloat until WWE comes a calling. And you know, it's kind of a Ouroboros snake eating its own tail situation, because they aren't going to get looked at by WWE if they're not being showcased, and they won't be showcased if they don't have any indies to wrestle in. So definitely support your indies.
Springboarding from the indies into the corporate indie, NXT, they had their big event in Chicago this week. And I don't think we would have known that if they hadn't told us so many times that they're in Chicago. But, you know, let's get right down to it. Looking at the card right now, it kicked off with Roderick Strong versus Eric Young with Sanity. Led into the UK Championship match between Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne. I am.
Did we lose you, Nick? I think we
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Okay, I got confused by chat.
Sorry.
From the UK Championship match between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, we also had the Tag Team Championship ladder match between the Authors of Pain and DIY. The Women's Championship was defended by Asuka against Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross, and Bobby Roode contested Hideo Itami for the NXT Championship. Right off the bat, I was going to ask, what is your favorite match of the night? But I think we all know what that was?
You know, I will start by saying it's a very tough call because there were some really solid matches on this card. I thought Roderick versus EY was solid at least. You know, it definitely above passable. I really liked the triple threat between the women. There was a little bit to be desired for me between Hideo and Roode, but we were kind of commenting on that last week. Even still, it was again another solid match. It wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. And outside of the tag match, was there one other match? I guess I should just look at the doc, right?
The Women's Championship.
Yeah, I said the women. I said the women triple threat. It's a professional recording here. Oh, the UK title. That was the other one, which was fucking gangbusters. Really, really great from bell to bell. Wasn't my personal favorite match. Yeah, I guess the reason why my favorite match is my favorite arguably is because of something that happened completely outside of the match, but I do not care. The match leading up to it made it all that more amazing and epic to me. Even still, I can't deny that bell to bell, that Dunn versus Bate was the better in-ring match. I mean, so many false finishes. The crowd was on its feet after like the fifth or sixth one. You could tell people in the audience were even like, what the fuck is it gonna take to keep either of these guys down? And anytime you can get the crowd to get that hyped for a 3 count is a unbelievable success, in my opinion. My personal favorite match, though, has to go to the Authors of Pain versus DIY. Again, DIY hits it out of the park with storytelling, which is kind of the dent of my personal enjoyment of WWE. I love storytelling. So if you could tell me a story, I don't care if you can do the best, craziest, flippiest move or technical driver or whatever the heck you want to throw at me. Like, if you tell me a great story from bell to bell, I'm sold. And I believe in my heart of hearts that DIY and AOP told the best story of the entire weekend, and I'm so happy about the results. And yeah, that was my favorite match of the night.
That wasn't what I was expecting, but that is absolutely a very respectable choice. Like you said, Bate versus Dunn was clearly the superior match, technically speaking. But the edge that AOP versus DIY had in terms of storytelling, I feel like is because that story all took place in NXT. So much of the story between Bate and Dunn is like not even outside of NXT and within the UK Championship or the UK tournament, but a lot of that story is derived from outside the WWE, like in progress over in the UK indie scene. You know, they are British strong style. Nigel alluded to it a little bit, saying that they were friends once. But tonight, all of that's out the window. But in order to really understand the relationship that Dunn and Bate have, you have to look elsewhere. It's like Bungie's Destiny. Like, there is a very solid lore there. It's just you have to go so far out of your way to get at it. And if you don't, then it's blander than bland. It's white bread personified. Fortunately, the UK Championship match wasn't white bread personified. Like, even if you don't know a thing about their prior relationship, like even if you never watched a UK tournament, that match alone had enough to get you invested. It had enough to make you pay attention. It had enough to get you out of your seat and just boggle at what is happening in front of you. But seemingly against all odds, the Authors of Pain and DIY had an excellent program. Like, this wasn't a feud that I was expecting to be right up there between the Revival and DIY or the Revival and American Alpha. And I think the gimmick match kind of helped solidify that. Because when you think ladder match, you think high flyers, you think Hardys, you think to a certain extent Edge and Christian. You start thinking about like the X division or the cruiserweights. You think of guys like DIY. You don't think of big bruisers like the Authors of Pain. And yet they use those ladders so effectively. Just, oh my God, that one spot where Gargano pushed Ciampa out of the way of the ladder swing, and then they took Gargano's head clean fucking off. I haven't seen that spot before, and my God, it is a powerful spot. Personally speaking, I've got to give my favorite to Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, but I mean, damn, there were so many things to love about that ladder match.
Mm-hmm.
So let's touch on the results proper. Roderick Strong, he defeated Eric Young despite interference from the rest of Sanity, or at least the male members of Sanity, which, you know, I wasn't really expecting when I heard this match. It's not the first showdown between Strong and Young, but it is the first time that Roddy has been the focus of it. So I was kind of expecting the numbers game to be used against him, but you know, they jumped right to Roddy got one over on EY. You know, it was against all odds, and it was kind of by the skin of his teeth, but he did it. So I'm not really sure where they're going to go from here. It's a little bit weird after how long Dillinger's fight against Sanity went. Do you have any ideas on what might be next? Do you think they involve Roddy's family proper, or do you think they just keep going and have them jump him again backstage and Roddy has to find friends this time?
It's very possible they can do a very similar, you know, outside of wanting to induct Roddy into Sanity, because I don't think they have any interest in doing that. I could see it playing out very similarly to Dillinger and Sanity, where Roddy finds friends, or at least tries to fend him off on his own for a while, and or they could, you know, move on from here. I mean, we were saying it for weeks that NXT's main event division has been lackluster, but now, you know, I think Roddy and EY, even in a loss for EY and EY's sake, because he still has Wolf and Dane next to him, are significant threats to the NXT title. Tommy has, I think, a very solid claim to challenge again. You have Drew McIntyre in the mix. You have Cassius Ohno in the mix. The potential of either Gargano or Ciampa, which I'm sure we'll talk about at length in a little bit more depth later on in the NXT breakdown. Also have, you know, some stake in being for the title. I have a feeling they'll probably take care of their own business first, but still, I mean, they could eventually become contenders. So I definitely think that it seems that Roddy versus EY directly is over now. I mean, I could be wrong when we see tomorrow's episode, but it sure seemed like a one-off thing. Also, I got a comment on, I really like Roddy's new backbreaker finisher. That thing looked like butter. Like, for a second, I thought that EY was legitimately dead from the way he landed. But of course, Roddy is a very safe hand in the ring. And it also gives me hope that we're going to see the master of the backbreaker return, which I would absolutely love. And I will, if that is the case, be adding Roddy versus Brock to my fantasy booking match list. But we'll just have to see. Time will only tell in that case. Either way, I think this was a pretty solid match. I think it was a one-off. I don't know if we're going to be seeing more from the two of them. If we do, I don't think it's going to be bad. I just think it's going to be a little repetitive coming straight off of Dillinger. So I would kind of prefer it to stay one-off, but we'll just have to see.
Absolutely. The other two title matches that we haven't really touched on a whole lot, I think those were fairly predictable. I think our picks kind of reflect that. But was there any doubt in your mind that Asuka wasn't walking away with the Women's Championship?
You know, going into this match, there was no doubt in my mind. But once the match started taking place, there were definitely a few moments where I thought Nikki Cross might actually be coming away with the title. And I thought it would have been a potentially interesting creative way to go to put the title in between Riot and Cross. But ultimately, I realized that those wishes and dreams were folly. We still had to, especially once they started cutting to Ember Moon a couple times. during the match, I was like, okay, we're definitely not done with Asuka versus Ember Moon, and I think the title needs to stay in that feud for now. And Riot and Cross are fine without it. Even still, I'm very impressed by the fact that they kind of, I consider myself, when it comes to pinfalls, a very jaded fan, that I know exactly when a pinfall is going to happen and when it's not. Although WWE has gone a great length to prove me wrong several occasions, and this was no exception to that rule. So I thought the match was really good. I'm fine with Asuka holding the title and continuing to, be dominant, only in so much as that we can see the finish to her storyline with Ember Moon. And that seems to be where the direction is headed. So, yeah, I really don't have any complaints about this match.
Yeah, I thought it was exceedingly telling as well that they kept flashing over to Ember Moon, watching from the box. It's kind of heartening as well, because I don't think they would be doing that if Ember was going to be on the shelf for a while. It seems like it was too serious to allow her to compete so soon at TakeOver, but maybe at the next TakeOver or maybe sometime in between even. Sure. Maybe she's going to be healthy enough to compete in the Women's Classic. Who knows? But it definitely does seem like that program between Ember and Asuka is still on track. And I'm a little torn by how the match finished, because on the one hand, I like that Ruby and Nikki have been written out of the title picture so they can focus on each other. But it does kind of add to the problem that they've created with Asuka, wherein nobody really looks credible against Asuka, because she's tapping up people left and right, she's choking them out, she's pinning two opponents at a time. Who are you going to send to take her down a peg? And the answer in my mind is still very clearly Ember Moon, because Ember is the only person that Asuka really ever had trouble with, that really had to resort to cheap tactics to defeat. Defeat her, Asuka still did, but it was
cheap and underhanded.
Exactly, yes. And you still keep Ember viable, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. I like that they're moving on more to singles competition for the moment, and the fact that we've got a pretty decent women's feud outside of the title picture is nice. Yeah, for that matter, they seem to be giving Sonya Deville some credibility. They focus a little bit on Lacey Evans, the newcomer from the Marine Corps, and they had Sonya go over in what was a pretty decent match. So overall, I think they're at a good point in the rebuilding stage of the women's division. It's just that, with Asuka still as champion, the way they've been booking her, I don't think we're going to be seeing a division where it used to be until Asuka's dethroned.
Yeah, and I can definitely see the problem with Asuka continuing to be champion and continuing to look more dominant than any other woman except for Ember Moon. But I think I'm okay with that now, knowing that more than likely Asuka's days as champion are numbered thanks to Ember Moon. I don't necessarily think it's a knock on Ruby or Nikki that they couldn't take the title away from her, especially because they all also had their own kind of baggage that they were handling inside the confines of that match too, which I think was distracting enough, as you predicted last week. Kind of the same with some of the other women, especially when they were heels, and as we all know, heels can have. When Asuka was a face and the rest of the women she was competing with were heels, we all know heels can have egg on their face and recover. So I don't feel as strongly as I did a couple months ago that Asuka has completely devalued the division at this point. I do think that, again, her days are numbered with that title. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that title match at TakeOver or whatever in front of SummerSlam. That seems like the perfect amount of time to make sure that Ember is completely 100%. It's not too far off from now. It's only a couple months. Perfect amount of build and tension too. I don't know who actively could keep Asuka busy until then, or maybe if you do some kind of like, you know, mentor mentee thing with another woman and Ember Moon, which I think could also be interesting too. Sort of the antithesis to Neville and TJP and Aries right now. I definitely think there's good creative directions to go. I don't think the women's division is hurting quite as much as it was a couple months ago, and I think we're going to end this with Ember Moon as champion, which I am all for. So let's get to it.
Absolutely. Speaking of getting to it, the NXT Championship title picture, it's gotten just a touch more complicated, because with Roode winning and fairly cleanly as well, I feel like that should eliminate Tommy from consideration for the moment. But, you know, there was Tommy's backstage reaction. You know, he's just throwing shit left and right. He's absolutely furious. And I only caught this in passing, but it seems as though Cassius Ohno has a problem with Tommy's reaction. So that seems to be where Tommy's headed right now, into a program with Ohno. I don't get any strong heel face dynamic from that feud in particular. This seems like it's going to be a short-lived thing, although it's probably going to be a hell of a program.
Sure.
But that leaves Roode in a unique situation, I think, especially as of the last year or so, where it's kind of a one and done program for him. You know, Tommy took a shot, he missed, and now it seems like it's next man in line, which is a little refreshing, I think.
Agreed. I would say it likens itself to, depending on who you are, an arguably better version of when JBL was champion on SmackDown. But I thought that it worked for JBL too, just like it's working for Roode here. I think one and done title defenses work really great for like slimy, egotistical heels like that, because it's kind of like, okay, who's next? Who's next? Who's next? I mean, you want to go back to the heyday of wrestling. That was fucking Ric Flair's stick in a nutshell. Who the fuck is next to take it down? And, you know, it wasn't, you know, really until Dusty Rhodes came up, and he was like the fucking antithesis to Ric Flair. And arguably they both kind of had each other's number, depending on where you point it out. But up until they built up to that program, it was always like, all right, this guy couldn't do it. Who the fuck is next to fucking knock that chip off of, you know, Rick or fucking JBL or now Bobby's shoulders? And I think that's perfect storytelling for this type of heel character. Not to mention, we get a lot, you know, as you're saying, a lot more refreshing match types, which we haven't seen in NXT for a very long time. You know, we've been very conditioned to see like 2, 3, 4 matches in a series between two of the same guys in the main event. I'm ready to see a lot of one and dones, you know, and potentially even build up to some kind of chaotic multi-man that, you know, in that case, then the fans are even more willing to see it, because how the hell could Roode survive that? He may not even need to be pinned to lose the title, you know? So I think it's excellent booking. If I had to pick as to who on the roster seems like the most likely, if Ohno and Hideo are busy with each other, probably Roddy, I would say. I don't know what else he would do. You know, he's got that win from Chicago, so might as well transition it. And he's, you know, especially after all those video packages and stuff, he's the widest, meatiest babyface that NXT has right now. And I feel like he would give Roode quite the challenge in a defense. So that's where I'd like to see it go.
I think that's a pretty solid pick. He's definitely got some momentum on his side. I'm not entirely sure whether Sanity's done with them or not. But if they are, you could definitely do a lot worse than Roddy versus Bobby. And I'm right there with you. This is definitely a great situation to be in as far as enjoying the top title picture. It's very different in that you've got Bobby Roode, who is a longtime veteran. He was a top guy in another company before he came over. And with prior champions like Joe Nakamura, you always had another guy that was their equal. Like, they had never been the top guy in WWE, but they've been top guys elsewhere, like Joe Nakamura, Joe Balor, and so on and so forth. There's not really that kind of analog right now to Roode. The closest you could get to would be EY, who held the now Impact World Championship.
But you'd probably have to turn Bobby face in that scenario.
Yeah, you would. I think there is a way you could get away with it by keeping a heel versus heel, in that Roode is very much the corporate orderly person, whereas EY is just fuck everything, burn it all to the ground.
Sure.
But like, even then, I feel like you'd eventually be turning EY face in that scenario.
Which may not be a bad thing. At least anti-hero.
Yeah, for sure. EY's definitely got the range to pull it off. I think you would have to ditch Dane and Wolf and Cross at that point, unless you went full on faction warfare, which I think there are ways you could pull that off, but I don't think it's incredibly likely.
Sure. Be interesting if they paired up Roode and Amos. I think that would actually help at least Amos out quite a bit.
Certainly. But yeah, like the closest to a top guy you have outside of Roode is EY, and even then, he was only at that pinnacle for a brief period of time. Outside of that, you've got guys that were big deals where they came from, but were never really the top guy. Like Hideo Itami, when he was Kenta in Pro Wrestling Noah, he was a rising star for sure, but even then there was still Kenta Kobashi and Mitsuharu Misawa still present. Even if they weren't entirely present in the ring, they were still entirely present in the product. With Drew McIntyre, like, he was never a top guy in WWE before, and he was on track to become a top guy in Impact, but then he left. And same with Roderick Strong. Like, he was Mr. ROH. He was part of the decade. Like, that whole shtick was because he's been around for over 10 years. He's one of the main fixtures, but I would wager that he was never really the top guy. And like guys like Almas, guys like Cassius Ono, again, very prominent names where they came from, but never really a top guy. So you've got a perfect scenario where Roode can just cycle through contenders like clockwork, essentially, until you come up upon the guy you decide this is going to be the guy to take down Roode. Personally, I figure that's going to be McIntyre. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a Christian situation because, you know, Christian was a vaunted tag team wrestler in the WWE, but when they went their singles ways, Edge got a lot of limelight and Christian wasn't really going anywhere. So then he went to TNA and he became a world champion, and he had a pretty decent career over there. And he comes back to WWE and he becomes a world champion. I think we're going to see something kind of similar with McIntyre, you know, in that he had so much success in TNA and he's coming back. Not just TNA, but in ICW. Like, he helped put that place on the fucking map as far as the global stage goes. So he comes to NXT. I think he's going to become a fairly big deal. I think he's on track to become the next NXT champion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I couldn't see that. It's just since his NXT debut and the handful of matches he had after that, we haven't really seen him mix it up with anyone. You know what, too, just crossed my mind? Someone who has had nothing but success since debuting and has yet to lose a match in NXT, Aleister Black. And that could be a pretty good antithesis to Bobby Roode, too.
Also true.
Man, I can't believe, like, how we were saying, again, a month ago, how barren it seemed that the main event was. And now, bang, we have at least arguably 10 contenders that could all viably challenge for Roode, and none of which I would poo-poo at seeing. So I'm definitely excited about NXT's new starting to pull away from that transitional period and possibly enter a new golden age.
Yeah, there's such a vibrance around NXT now. It seemed like it was stagnating over the last year with the top title picture being locked down by just two people. Asuka running roughshod over everybody. Ember Moon hadn't really set her sights on the title yet. The tag team scene, it wasn't as bad, I don't think, but it wasn't the same sort of vigor that you had with American Alpha and the Revival, or even with DIY and the Revival. I think that was just because the Authors of Pain hadn't really gotten their feet wet. They hadn't yet solidified themselves as such a terror in that division yet. Mm-hmm. Like nobody really set their sights properly on them. It was just they were running roughshod over everybody they ran into. But now, like, you've got new up and coming tag teams in Heavy Machinery, the Ely brothers. TM61 is going to be coming back within the next few months, I believe. And the women's division, you got the Mae Young Classic coming up. You got Sonya Deville rebranded, Lacey Evans, like all other kinds of women. Like that number one battle royal really opened my eyes to a few different talents. Mm-hmm. And as we've been saying, like, there's all kinds of guys you can throw a Roode. And as far as I'm concerned, you don't have a loser in the lot.
100% agree.
There is one other event from TakeOver Chicago that we really have to touch on, and that is DIY as a tag team is no more. TakeOver Chicago, it wasn't their moment. It was Tommaso Ciampa's moment. And pulling the trigger after teasing that move for so long, I thought that was the perfect time to do it.
It was cathartic, right?
Most definitely, because I had been waiting for that to happen for months, like going on a year, I feel like, because it seemed like even before their match in the Cruiserweight Classic, it seemed like they were primed for it. Like they took their shot, they missed, and Ciampa was so upset, and instead he sat down and held his brother. Mm-hmm. And in the Cruiserweight Classic, Ciampa had victory within his grasp, and he hesitated, and it cost him. And he was so upset, but he sat down and he held his brother. Mm-hmm. And then they moved away from that for a while. Mm-hmm. Like every now and again, there was a moment where it looked like Ciampa was thinking about it, but they never seriously considered it. And then Gargano got married to Candice LeRae, and Ciampa was his best man, and they had so many heartwarming moments, like the Glorious Bomb and all of that, and it just drifted out of your mind. Like you
that
thought,
great dance routine at their reception was also pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. A special shout out to Chuck Taylor for being the I don't know what you call it, the carrier for Gregory Iron, but yeah, it was just that moment just drifted so far into the back of everybody's mind, I feel like. And then when I think everybody was expecting, like, this is it for DIY. Like, this is their last big match in NXT before they move up as a team. We were half right. That was it for DIY. But that's because Ciampa caved Gargano's fucking head in. And god damn, that was just so fraught with emotion and just feelings.
Definitely was. And I would also like to point out that I don't know about this we business, because I said they would either go to the main roster as a team, or my preference, they would split the fuck up and Gargano would go heel. And that's exactly what fucking happened. And I'm so happy about it. I can't even describe it in any sort of words. I'm not even going to attempt to. Just seeing those knee shots, watching Ciampa pull down his knee guard and just obliterate Gargano, and looking at Gargano's sad, tear-filled face as he stared up at Ciampa, begging him to stop, and Ciampa vehemently ignored him and continued his beatdown, was possibly one of the best NXT moments I've ever seen. I loved Zayn versus Owens. I loved fucking TakeOver Dallas. I loved fucking Nakamura versus Sammy. All those moments were great, but nothing compared to the fucking epicness that was this heel turn. I've said many times that the story between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt was at least a lengthy one, which is something that many of us wrestling fans have been begging for a very long time. And it was a solid fairly 6-month long story. I'm not going to say it was the best. I definitely think there could have been better moments, but it was solid and we got it. This right here, this is how you tell a long-term story. This is the mold for which all other wrestling stories that you want to tell for over a year should be cast, because this had the emotion in it. As happy as I was to see it, I was teary-eyed watching Gargano get utterly destroyed. I can't fucking emphatically say how great this was, and I cannot wait to see the next singles match between them when fucking Ciampa is not holding back, is not trying to preserve that friendship, and is just going to tear him down. We're going to make another great heel on NXT, and I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing Gargano laying in the wreckage of those tables and Ciampa sitting on the desk above him. And I thought it was pretty cool because there were pictures coming out after the event, like 10 minutes after the show had ended. I think Gargano had been wheeled out, but Ciampa was still sitting on that table, just staring at where Gargano's body was. And I think that's the right note to take from this. I don't think it should be, I hated you all along, like, you've just been dragging me down. And there's probably going to be elements of that, but he was just so tortured. Like, just look at his face. No extreme one way or another. No, like, bloodlust in his eyes, or it wasn't crying over it or anything like that, but just right there in that sweet spot between the two. Just a picture of regret and acceptance that this is what he had to do. This was the path to success for me, but I just put my knee through my brother's head. Like, this is what I have to live with now. And I am so looking forward to this. I haven't seen a story like this in NXT since Zayn versus Owens. And this could be on track to outstrip even that masterclass of storytelling that has spanned promotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's Backlash.
Wow, that's a very, very jarring transition.
I think that's the only way we can make it happen is just you have to rip the Band-Aid off of it. All right, motherfucker, it's time for Backlash.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're never going to stop talking about NXT.
It's so good, though. It's so good.
Absolutely. Just running down the card for Backlash. Here are the results. Starting with the pre-show, Ty Dillinger defeated Aiden English. And these are by no means in order. Luke Harper defeated Eric Rowan. Sami Zayn pulled a rabbit out of the hat and beat Baron Corbin. Natalya, Carmella, and Tamina, the Welcoming Committee, defeated Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and the SmackDown Women's Champion Naomi. Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Dolph Ziggler. The Usos retained the SmackDown Tag Team Championships against Breezango. Kevin Owens won via countout against AJ Styles to hold on to his U.S. Championship and his moniker, the new face of America. And it happened. The memes have won. Jinder Mahal is your WWE champion, having wrested that title from the fucking Sing Killer himself, Randy Orton. Where to begin? Just this show was so full of mind fucks that I mean, let's start from the beginning. Dillinger versus English. First of all, major props to the Drama King for the Van Gogh Starry Night tights. Those arguably were the best tights all evening, all weekend even. But sadly, decor and accoutrement is not enough to earn yourself a victory. Instead, he fell to the tiebreaker via Ty Dillinger's hands. Do you think this ought to have been on the main card as opposed to the other two singles filler matches we had?
No, I think it was a good placement for this match. And yes, I also echo the same sentiment. Aiden's tights were fucking on point. And we need more artistic stuff like that in wrestling so that fucking YouTube will decide to monetize any sort of wrestling content. So thank you, Aiden, for carrying that burden for the rest of us. But no, I thought this match was perfectly fine for the pre-show. I mean, Aiden arguably still really hasn't found his feet yet since becoming a single star, which is fine. I mean, he's been a single star for maybe 3 weeks now. And I thought he was a good foil for Dillinger, you know, kind of the antithesis to the Perfect 10, I guess. I loved that when he got Dillinger into a rest hold, he would sing like "He's gonna lose" or fucking stupid shit like that. I thought that was fucking perfect. And yeah, I think it was a good, nice warm-up match. The right guy I think went over for right now, you know, just to get people kind of again warmed up for the pay-per-view itself and excited. And I can't really think of much else to say.
Yeah, absolutely a good way to get things going, to get the crowd, you know, paying attention and interested, because Ty Dillinger is obviously a crowd favorite, and Aiden English is just such a dude that you love to hate. I love how he can turn that switch on and off, because with Simon Gotch as part of the Vaudevillains, you know, they were a respectable face team. Like they could get people interested, and not just by booing the shit out of them for being old school heels. But he really is in his element as this this hipster douche Pavarotti wannabe. And I really do hope for bigger and better things for both those guys, especially since Luke Harper versus Eric Rowan wasn't anything special. You know, there wasn't anything awful about this match. You know, both guys did what they had to do and made everything work without any significant injuries. So I guess, you know, overall it's a positive. But I don't know who asked for this, because Wyatt's on Raw and the family's busted up, but Rowan can't let go of that. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling the storyline direction of that.
I kind of like the angle of like 5 million different masks inside of Rowan's sack. I will say, and that is not a sexual move. Please, nobody try it. I will say I do think there needs to be a little bit more meat to his character than just, hey, look, I have a million different types of sheet mask. And I like to stare off into the distance sometimes, because that's already fucking Luke Harper's thing, and that's gimmick infringement, motherfucker. He's the master of the 1,000-yard stare. He's even got the eyes in his fucking Titantron, so stay away, Rowan. That said, you know, I'm not going to say I necessarily asked for this, but I was intrigued. I don't think this is over between the two of them. And for what it was, I actually kind of enjoyed the match. I'm not going to say it was a barn burner that, you know, it was even like good, but it was fine. And I think it's a good starting point. I'm hoping at some point that Luke can kind of snap Rowan out of his delusions, and maybe they could form a tag team again and fucking rock the tag team roster. I'm hoping that's where this whole story goes. And if that's the case, then even if it's like a shitty story, I will definitely give them brownie points for at least going in a logical direction and showing you the steps of how they became a tag team again, rather than I guess fucking Rowan just says fuck you to Wyatt because he's not on the same show anymore. So in that way, I kind of give their story a little bit of credence and some leeway, and I'm patient to see if it unfolds. But there's always the off chance that they do not tag again, in which case that is kind of a waste of Harper. At least I feel like he could be a good U.S. title contender at this point, and I think that's where he should be. So we'll just have to see where it goes from here, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Either way, whether Harper and Rowan team up or they don't, I see good things for Harper. Like, he carried himself pretty well in that whole Orton Wyatt feud, to the point where I was legitimately upset every time he was included in a title opportunity and it fell through. Especially, you know, when Orton got it and then Jinder got it, and Harper is here with his nothing match in the cool down before Jinder's title shot. So yeah, it's frustrating for the moment, but I am hopeful that it will eventually resolve favorably. Speaking of favorable resolutions, I hope we found one between Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin, because I'm kind of done with this feud. I want to see both guys move on to different things. specifically, I'd like to see Zayn fight somebody that isn't billed as a giant, and therefore he can get matches where there is some parity between offense. I think this is a pretty solid match. I don't think. Let me rephrase. I think Zayn makes a pretty good underdog.
Oh sure,
he's got the right
name, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely earned. Like the mannerisms, he's got it all down pat. But we know he can be so much more than just an underdog. We know that he can be a pretty good champion. It's just there's been so much underdog for the last several months, ever since he had that resolution to his blood feud with Owens. It's all been Braun Strowman or Baron Corbin or Big Show or what have you. It's never been somebody where they have told a story that Sami Zayn is at least as good as this guy. Like he has a fighting chance. It's all been Zayn, you idiot. You fucking Eva Marie knockoff. Like you don't stand a chance. Like
I believe he's actually worth 1,000 Eva Maries.
Yeah. It turns out he is because he's there and Eva Marie's not. But
Ziga.
Yeah. It's just I know he's capable of more, so I want to see more. And I'm hoping this is it, but I don't know what they would do with him if that was the case.
I definitely, and I know you're not going to like the sound of this, but I definitely could see him transitioning into a feud with Ziggler to kind of like, oh dear God, man, you almost broke your internet with that scream. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best place for Sammy, but I could see sort of a odd like passing of the torch, I guess, where they sort of switch places. Basically, fucking Ziggler becomes the guy that like always fucking loses, and hopefully Sammy's at least put into better programs, even though he may also still be the guy that always fucking loses. I would like to see better than that for Sammy, and time will tell. I think he would fucking hang just as well, obviously, with Kevin Owens or with AJ Styles. In fact, I'm pretty sure they've had several matches on the Indies, so it wouldn't be any unfamiliar territory at that point. But yeah, I was happy about this win. I am in the same camp. I kind of think this stuff with Corbin is done. I think Corbin needs a better feud to heat him up, because at this point, if they keep going, it's just going to be 50-50 booking at that point, and that's really not going to do either guy any favors. So I think, Corbin picking on some other new smaller guy might be better for the both of them. I loved I feel like that has to be said. I love the out of nowhere, and I would love it if he fucking gimmick and fringe Randy with the haluva kick that way. I love the out of nowhere haluva kick to finish the match. I thought that was really good. One of the big, I guess, nitpicks I would give to Sammy's thing is that the haluva kick is so telegraphed. And to see it kind of come from out of nowhere, I think would really give Sammy an edge as far as kayfabe is concerned. But I was very happy with the result. Nice to see Sammy finally get a true 1, 2, 3 shoulders down on the mat pin to hopefully start his new gain of momentum. And he is on SmackDown too. And as I've heard, SmackDown makes him, and then maybe Raw takes him. So Sami Zayn should be made here.
Yeah, contrary to my reaction, I think Zayn versus Ziggler could be halfway decent. If for no other reason than Ziggler's a fucking loser, so there's no way that Zayn should be considered an underdog. So let's go ahead and transition into Nakamura versus Ziggler. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Nakamura won his in-ring debut match. It was about as even as I think you'd expect. Ziggler is the veteran, the main roster veteran, and he still got it. But Nakamura is just such a presence and such a force to be reckoned with that it was fairly even back and forth. I wasn't enthused by this match. It never really grabbed me the way most other Nakamura matches have. Like even at their lowest point, Nakamura and Joe still put on good to great matches. This wasn't one of them, I feel like. Did you get any sort of similar vibe? Are you more positive on this match, or are you somehow more negative?
I think I'm kind of in the middle. I think I'm kind of lukewarm. I'll at least admit that I was wrong last week. I thought that Ziggler could hang, as you so eloquently put it, Nick. And I'm not going to say he didn't outright hang, but I really thought he was going to. I even said it in the live chat. I thought he was going to hit the gas a little bit harder to at least attempt to get to the level of Nakamura and Zayn, but it never really got to that point. While I do think there were some cool heel things that Ziggler did, such as spitting on Nakamura and super kicking him right in the back of his fucking head. Ultimately, I don't think we're going to be talking about this match even fucking 6 months from now, so even a month from now, maybe. So I definitely don't think we'll be talking about it by the time Money in the Bank rolls around. It was a fine match to warm up the main roster crowds to Nakamura, if they even needed warming up in the first place. But I definitely think Nakamura is ready to be injected somewhere into the main event. I would love because I think I really don't want, if just get Randy Orton's rematch done with on TV. But if fucking Jinder kind of decides that, he's moving on and now he's a champion and I'm going to celebrate, only for Nakamura to come in and ruin his celebration party, I think that would be a great dynamic. I think he'd play well off of Jinder and the Singh brothers, at least in character. I don't know if Jinder can hang between the ropes, but if not, then seems like a perfect opportunity to just transition that title on over to Nakamura, who, outside of AJ and Owens, who are clearly busy with their own title feud at this moment, I can't really see anyone else going for the title. So and being credible in doing so. So, and I think it's only in WWE's best interest to sort of hot shot Nakamura straight into that division as quickly as possible. So that's where I'd like to see it go. And the match was okay.
So just to clarify, you think that Nakamura would be the guy to take that belt off of Jinder?
I mean, I definitely think he'd have a lot of struggle doing so. Jinder is such a dominant champion. But I could see it happening. I definitely see a small sliver of hope for Nakamura.
Yeah, I could see that being kind of interesting because Jinder obviously has the Singh brothers in his back pocket. And Nakamura, at least right now, he doesn't really have anybody. So I figure that would be kind of a nice balancing factor between Nakamura, who is very clearly ace caliber, and Jinder, who is at best upper mid card. So
best lower card, I'd say, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, you're not entirely wrong. I would have figured. I don't know. There are a few different ways you could take that. I definitely don't see Orton taking it back from Jinder just because it's Randy Orton, who really wants to see him holding a title. But I'm sorry, you were about to mention somebody.
I was just gonna say I feel like Randy's at Cena's level at this point, regardless of how you feel about his character. Like, he just doesn't need to be champion anymore, and yeah. So why? And he doesn't have the one credibility I'll give to John Cena is, love him or hate him, he has the charisma to heat up a title feud, even if he's involved, even if he doesn't win. I don't feel like Randy is at that same level of charisma as was proven with this last title reign, that people could not wait to see him lose it. So
Orton is nega Cena in that regard.
Yeah, and when people are clamoring for Jinder fucking Mahal to be champion over Randy Orton, there's got to be a little bit of a problem there. So I don't think it'd be smart to put it right back on him again.
Mm-hmm. So we've pretty much touched on all of the non-title singles matches. Let's jump to the other non-title match, which was the 6-woman tag between Naomi, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch versus the welcoming committee of Natalya, Carmella, and Tamina. It was Natalya that picked the victory for her team, submitting Becky Lynch with the sharpshooter. I can't remember the last time she's won with that. And I certainly wasn't expecting it after Carmella pinned Naomi. I kind of figured that of the three, Carmella would be the person emerging as the brightest star, as sort of the leading lady, if you will. And that, I don't know, maybe that would result in intra-faction or faction fighting, or maybe Natalya would drift further back into a mentor role. I don't know really what I was expecting, but I think the actual end result kind of threw me for a loop. What about you? Was this just way out of left field for you, or is it kind of within your realm of expectations?
Man, I think it's actually, I hate to be Mr. Undecided voter here, but I feel like it's kind of in between those two options on the spectrum. I did expect the faces to win just because the welcoming committee had been so dominant throughout the rest of this feud. It seemed like the faces needed to win to kind of keep this feud interesting. Now that the welcoming committee has utterly dominated the entire thing, it surely seems like a title shot should be in order for at least one member of the team. I would argue Natalya, because she's the one that actually won the match and the one that built the welcoming committee in the first place. But it wasn't totally unexpected. I mean, this match also kind of felt a little bit throwaway. Like, we don't really know what to do with the women's title at this pay-per-view, so fuck it, let's just have a match that showcases the whole division, which is fine. By the way, fuck this match for all the tags that were in it. I thought I was going to suffocate for how many times I had to drink, but outside of that, I thought it was perfectly serviceable and a good way to pass the time on the pay-per-view. And Natalya winning, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, certainly not. In fact, nobody on that team really looked bad, because Natalya, I think Natalya and Carmella did about as well as I was expecting them to. Tamina, I wasn't really expecting much from, and yet she played the powerhouse better, I think, than Nia has, just in terms of how lethal she could be. And I didn't really see anything special from Naomi, from Charlotte, from Becky at all. Maybe I was just too busy trying to keep up with all the tags and marking them in the live chat that we were in. But
thanks, Nick. Thanks. So glad you were there for that.
Yeah, I mean, I fully admit that some of my attention for that match was diverted as I was getting a new beer and cracking it open because of all of the goddamn tags in this match. I really cannot overemphasize how many times the welcoming committee tagged in and out of that match. But
it's smart. It's smart tag. It's smart tag team psychology there. Actually, you know what? I think we should direct our hate to WhatCulture for making that a fucking drinking role to begin with.
Yeah,
fuck you guys. I'm glad you're not getting monetized on YouTube. No, that was too far. That was too far. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a couple steps too far. I apologize. But yeah, overall, I think that was a pretty fun tag team match, and I think it progressed things a little further. It really did emphasize the fact that the faces aren't really friends. They just have a common enemy, and the fact that this common enemy is as dominant as it is, it could inspire further unity from the faces, but I feel like it's going to inspire more division, like Charlotte blaming the other two for her loss, and things of that nature. So it really could go a number of interesting directions. Jumping onward to the other tag team match, the Usos versus Breezango for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. And really low-key the best match of the night.
Especially when you're drunk, guys. Just to throw that out there.
For sure. I mean, Tyler Breeze is an international treasure. And I say international because I really don't want Canada to keep that gorgeous, gorgeous man all to themselves. He should be shared with the world. And man, I'm so heartbroken that the Usos won anyway after that just masterclass in undercover work that Breeze put on.
Mm-hmm.
But they did. It was a very solid match, shenanigans aside. I don't see how anybody could be mad at that.
This match was just fun, like it was just a barrel of fun. I mean, this has always been what, to me, wrestling is about. It's about enjoying yourself. It's about kind of, just having fun with everything. Yeah, I'm not going to say every match should be taken as seriously as this match was, but it's just nice to let your hair down and just laugh at things sometimes, and much respect to Tyler Breeze for not only doing the undercover work as the janitor, but then later doing the undercover work as the fucking grandma, and the camera work for that, because I was legitimately shocked when suddenly they cut to him and he was a fucking grandma all of a sudden. When the fuck did that happen? I know I wasn't that drunk. And man, so great. Also, credit to whichever Uso it was that threw the dress away and clonked JBL right in the head, because that was pretty amazing too. So yeah, this match was just fun, all around fun. And if you hate this, then you just hate happiness and joy. And I feel sorry for you. So here we are.
The only thing I could possibly hate is that it made me forget that JBL is a trash human. Because he just
literally, because they threw the trash on him and into him.
Yeah. Because I mean, he just went with that gimmick whole hog, and as little as he brings to the table as a commentator, as little to the table as he brings just as a person, there are moments where I can remember that there may be something worthwhile to this dude after all, and I don't think that validates his presence at all. I think you could have had a number of other people there in that spot and they would have done just as good a job. But I mean, I can give credit where it's due. And for once, he just bought in. He's not sitting there tearing down the NXT guys or the pretty boys. He just went for it. He just rolled with the punches. And it's amazing how much better life can be when you just do that. You're not just a gigantic asshole.
Agreed. There needs to be less assholes in the world. Outside of physical assholes, because everybody needs one of those.
At least one, yes.
Do you have more than one asshole, dude?
Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles for the U.S. Championship. Again, I hate to follow up Usos versus Breezango with this, but I feel like this wasn't the match I was hoping it would be. Maybe I was just too drunk to properly enjoy it at this point, but I don't know. I feel like I was expecting it to be at least on par with Dunn and Bate, and it really wasn't. The best endorsement I can give is that of any count-out finish, like, this was the best one. That was incredibly natural looking. I wasn't expecting it to end that way. AJ got caught in the table and the wires just such a way that it didn't feel contrived. Like so many countouts, you got somebody crawling along and then just all of a sudden they jump right up and hop back in. And this wasn't it. Like, he was legitimately caught, and like it was something you could expect to see. So just props to them for managing to pull that off. And I should clarify, this is by no means a stinker of a match. It was just, having seen what TakeOver Chicago was, this kind of didn't live up to the standard that had been set, I don't think.
Yes and no. I think first of all, I don't think this is over, obviously, for how the finish went. I agree that I think it was a really, really good count-out finish. One that of course Owens would fucking run right the hell out of Dodge fucking championing, no pun intended. But I do think they're kind of holding their best stuff for later, because again, I don't think this is quite done yet. And I will also give them credit for the amount of teases in this match that sure, what could have been, and we didn't actually get to see it, and that could almost be a negative strike on it. But the fact that they even went there and kind of put the idea in their mind, I don't think I would have ever even thought for anyone to attempt a Styles Clash off of the apron onto the floor. And now I must see it to its completion. So please, guys, if you are going to continue, please give me that. And be safe doing it. But most importantly, give it to me. And Kevin Owens fucking jump off the top. That was another rule, diving. And I can't sit here with my fucking drink hovering in the air, ready to touch my lips. And then you just say, fuck off. I'm not going to dive anymore. Just fuck you, JBL. JBL. I'm so used to saying fuck you, JBL. Fuck you, KO, for being the biggest cock tease I've ever known in my life. But also, great job.
Yeah, certainly. And your call for patience is being echoed in the live chat, and it is entirely valid. I think I was expecting too much after seeing the UK title match, and I've been saying nothing is going to touch this match. But I also felt like Styles versus Owens is the closest they could come to doing that. And those two guys absolutely do have it in them to top that UK title match. But I mean, you're right. It's their first match together, or at least in the series. It probably will continue because that was within kayfabe a bullshit way for Owens to win. So, yeah, I fully acknowledge that I am being a brat about this, but god damn it, I want the best all the time, every time, and fuck you, give it to me.
Touche.
Yeah, what really was not the best, the WWE Championship match, Randy Orton versus Jinder Mahal. This was a shit show from the word go, ever since Jinder became number one contender, and the shit show continues. Jinder Mahal is the WWE champion. India number one, India number one, Jinder Mahal. Did you hear the Indian commentary team? Like, did you ever get linked to that?
I did.
Yeah. It's outside of hearing the Punjabi commentary team for the Pittsburgh Penguins chanting Bonino's name, this was probably the funniest thing I've heard in quite some time. Just clearly reading off a script. Just on and on. India number one, Jinder Mahal. And I just imagine them standing on their table and that line of commentary desks they have for the B squad, I guess, and then just turning in place, middle fingers extended to all the other commentary teams.
What they needed, I think, was that dude from the who was the English commentator for the Asian baseball game in that famous YouTube video. Jinder Mahal is long gone like the ex-girlfriend who will never return. I would have fucking died for that. That would have been great.
Yeah. I mean, there is a fine line between that and Abraham Washington, Titus O'Neil is unstoppable, just like Kobe Bryant in the Colorado hotel room.
Of course.
So that's a line you have to watch very closely.
They keep it generalized, man, and then everything's okay.
But yeah, most of this match was fairly inoffensive. I think I kind of glossed over parts of it just because I never
man.
Yeah, I never seriously expected them to give that nod to Jinder. Even with the help of the Singh brothers, who, by the way, God bless those dudes, because Orton fucking destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
That was the sole segment of the match where I kind of just woke up from the stupor I had been sinking into and began actively shitting on everything that was happening, because there is no reason Randy Orton, of all people, one of the veterans of the company, should be chucking somebody like that in such a manner that they land on their fucking head on the commentary table. Like that face Randy Orton pulled, there is no reason he should be pulling that kind of face because there is no reason he should be working that sloppily. Like, they may only be cruiserweights, but they're still fucking human beings under contract.
Sure. For that matter, what was with the logic of them pulling Jinder out of the ring? Why was that not a disqualification? I'm still kind of unclear about that. I mean, it seemed like the most blatant run-in interference that I think I've ever seen, right the fuck in front of the ref's eyes, and yet the match still continued. So yes, I will admit that the way that this match was booked and structured was not exactly the best, but at the end of the day, a fucking young up-and-comer who probably never thought he'd be there is now champion, and I'm kind of curious to see where they go with that. And that's probably the best silver lining I can take out of this whole situation. I like the fact that SmackDown is willing to take a chance on this guy who seemingly has really never had any reason to be given a chance to begin with. But let's see where it goes. That's definitely my outlook moving forward.
Yeah, certainly. Jinder is definitely no slouch. He's at worst a decent hand in the ring. And when NXT crowned its inaugural NXT champion in that Gold Rush tournament that Dusty put together, it went down to Seth Rollins versus Jinder Mahal. And they put on an excellent match that I don't think Seth could have carried somebody to at that point. So Jinder has always been a reliable hand in the ring. Somebody that you can count on in a title match. I think prior to this program, I would have said Intercontinental or US title match, but he's been pretty good in this program with Orton. I could do a little less with you dirty Americans, you hate me because I'm different, but otherwise that feels like a minor gripe to me. I think Jinder has done fairly well. I think Orton's been the bum hand in this program so far, at least as far as building up to it.
I definitely agree.
So I am completely with the sentiment that you expressed earlier. Like, just get this rematch out of the way, have Orton just fumble it and go back to whatever the fuck he was doing. Go have him film some more guest spots on Shooter. Have him get reacquainted with his wife. I don't know. Just no more for a while.
Have him go explore more dilapidated fucking houses and other structures and burn them down.
Yes, somebody please push an actual fridge onto Randy Orton. Just show us what that would look like. Just Jeez. Randy Orton underneath a fridge, because we haven't seen it yet.
It's true.
But that, I believe, is Backlash in a nutshell. Overall, mostly pretty inoffensive. Some very shoddy officiating, not just in that spot with the Singh brothers, but I don't think there was a solid 5 seconds where Ziggler didn't have his hand in Nakamura's hair. And there were a few other moments like that. But, there were some truly bad spots in the show, but there was also some very decent spots. And there was the bright spot that I will forever hold in my heart with Tyler Breeze rolling from corner to corner as I believe it was Jimmy Uso kept walking over and climbing up top and then going back to the other corner and climbing up top and then going to the other corner and climbing up top, and Fandango just directing traffic the entire time, as a good fashion cop should.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Yeah. Backlash.
Backrash.
Yes, that was another meme that erupted from everything, and it's entirely deserved. Jinder Mahal's a scary dude. But with Backlash now in the rear view, that leaves us looking forward to Extreme Rules, which happens in 2 weeks' time. Not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday afterward.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, just let that sink in. There's been some build-up for Extreme Rules already, and there was some more this week on Raw. For instance, Finn Balor and Paul Heyman, they had a pleasant chat. Looking forward to Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor after Extreme Rules, which I would hazard a guess is the popular choice.
Sure, with Strowman out of the picture. I'm assuming Strowman Lesnar was the original plan for Great Balls of Fire. Still hate that name.
Yeah. Very possible. But we also had what resulted in the tag team match between Bray Wyatt and Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Looks like we might actually be getting some resolution to Rollins stabbing Reigns in the back. All those years ago when the Shield broke up.
Yes. I was so happy to see that interaction on Raw. Better late than never, I'll say.
Yeah. Wyatt and Joe wound up winning. Joe choked out Reigns with the Coquina Clutch. And afterward, Angle set up 2 matches for next week. We got Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt versus Samoa Joe in a triple threat. And we got a singles match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. So could potentially be the comeuppance that Roman Reigns never really got to deliver against Seth Rollins for that breakup, or it could not. But I suppose we'll see. Some more development for Extreme Rules. The Hardy Boys won their singles match against the Bar. It was Sheamus versus I forget who. Matt. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what I'm here for, buddy.
Yeah. So we're getting a steel cage match between the Hardys and the Bar of Sheamus and Cesaro at Extreme Rules. Right off the bat, do you think? Is this a good move? Like, obviously, the Hardys and ladder match are just inextricably linked together in everybody's heads, but a steel cage match is that where, outside of a ladder match, would you have jumped to steel cage for this tag team match?
It makes just about as much sense as any other stipulation being put on any other match. And the Hardys have shined in steel cage matches before. I know a good half of most of Jeff Hardy's highlight reel is from off the top of a steel cage. So I'm not going to say it's the worst stipulation for him. I will also say that when Matt called out the stipulation and gave us the broken laugh right at the beginning, I was kind of half paying attention to that match, and my ears instantly perked up, and then he just went right back to old school Matt Hardy. But I definitely was interested for a half second there. So I'm also curious if maybe, because that seems like the most blatant of acknowledgments of the broken character, if maybe we might see more progress. Maybe that lawsuit has finally been settled.
Potentially. Do you think that this cage is going to have a lid, or do you think it's going to be open for the potential of top of the cage swanton bombs?
Oh, it's definitely going to be open.
Yeah, I imagine you're right. One, I believe, final development for Extreme Rules this week on Raw, the Cruiserweight title match is officially going to be a submission match at Extreme Rules between Neville and Austin Aries. And that excites me to no end because both those guys have awesome submission finishers. And Neville's almost been put away twice with the last Chancery. The Rings of Saturn have just been so effective as well. All in all, I think this could be the dark horse for match of the night at Extreme Rules.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty solid match. I mean, especially now that you've established the Rings of Saturn as such a devastating move, and the last Chancery's been getting its own kind of headwind as of late. So I definitely think, and especially because I can't even remember the last time they booked a submission match. Like, all of it sounds really refreshing and interesting for the cruiserweights, who most of the time are saddled on as guys who dive, according to other assholes on the internet. So I'm interested in it.
Yeah, that is a pretty great observation too. Despite the fact that you've had other guys like TJP, like Brian Kendrick, prominently feature their own submission maneuvers. Like TJP has a knee bar, Kendrick has a captain's hook. You still got the stigma with the cruiserweight division that they're just high flyers, and it's borne out by some, like Mustafa Ali, Lince Dorado, Rich Swann to a somewhat lesser extent. And even then, Neville and Aries have built themselves in that cruiserweight mold. They've always had the submission finishers, or at least Aries has, but they've still either been cruiserweights or X Division athletes. And I think this is a good way to kind of erase some of that stigma, establish them as being guys that can take it to the ground just as easily, if not more easily, than they can take to the air.
I definitely agree.
A couple other minor developments that I thought was kind of neat, if only from a storyline perspective. Goldust has spoken for the first time since stabbing R-Truth in the back. He had a incredibly great promo, if only from a cinematic perspective, where he talks up being back in the director's chair. Thank you. And he says the golden age is back. And I like the tack they're taking, because it's not entirely clear how long it's going to be before R-Truth is going to come back, because, he does have that game show that he's doing. But, not long after last week's Raw, he came out on Twitter and told Goldust, "I better not see your ass." So it's obvious that there is going to be a payoff relatively soon. It just remains to be seen how they're going to reach that point. But if we keep getting stuff like this, where like the shutter speed has just been slowed down a little bit, and you get that glinting effect off of Goldust, I mean, I'm all for it.
Same. Goldust's original heel persona, if any of you have not seen it, I recommend highly watching it, because I don't think he'll go quite as androgynous as he did then, but he was still a great methodical mind game heel. And if that's what he's going back to, I'm cool with that. And if he wants to even give it a spicier 2017 update in one way or another, I'm definitely cool with that too. I was kind of curious as to where Goldust was going to go last week, and I feel like all my questions were answered, and I'm excited to see it.
And one final little note to cap off the Raw discussion: Kalisto and Apollo Crews had a match that Titus O'Neil set up, because Kalisto's questioning whether Apollo is the same dude that he's known for years, or whether he might have been the one to jump Enzo Amore. And Crews took umbrage, but it was Titus O'Neil that thought that Kalisto needed a lesson, and so he set up a match between his guy and Kalisto. And the match was what it was. Ultimately, Titus just kept backseat driving so much to the point that Apollo couldn't get the job done, and Kalisto beat him. But somebody pointed out to me that this angle is kind of taking on a real life connotation, between Lonzo Ball and his son LeVar Ball, the college basketball player. And if you're not familiar, Lonzo is the epitome of vicariously living through your children in pro sports. He is his son's agent. He has 3 sons, and he is all of their agent. And he's making deals off of his children's names, and he's got his own shoe line and all of that. And he is widely acclaimed as one of the biggest assholes related to college sports. And there's a similar vibe between Apollo and Titus, in that, Apollo's in that role where he's clearly not happy about a lot of the things that Titus is doing. But, just like Lonzo is still LeVar's dad, Titus still has a lot of opportunities that Apollo could take advantage of. So there's not enough incentive yet for Apollo to tell Titus to screw off. But, there's enough conflict there that it makes it a lot more interesting with the real world connotations than I think it otherwise might be.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know anything about that, but the way you describe it, I'm a little bit more interested than I might have been previously. I also kind of like the dynamic of Apollo isn't totally entirely sure whether he should totally embrace Titus or should kind of pull himself away. I like that dynamic. It's not just the cut and dry scenario that we've seen in wrestling past, where a manager comes along and instantly the talent just does whatever the manager says. So I like that. I like playing with that dynamic and seeing elsewhere as to where it goes. I'm also kind of unsure as to whether it really was Apollo Crews who attacked Enzo or not. He does definitely seem like the most likely suspect, but considering how the attack was pulled off, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it was legitly him. I mean, even though Apollo slapped the shit out of Enzo last week, it just doesn't seem like his MO. So I'm curious to see how that develops as well.
I realized I misspoke earlier. LeVar is the dad asshole. Alonzo is the college basketball player. So
I see.
Mea culpa.
Fair enough. Scratch that, reverse it.
Yes. We do have picks counted up for this week's predictions or this weekend's predictions. In terms of Backlash, Adam, you and I were neck and neck in terms of how many we predicted correctly. That is 5 apiece. It was NXT that proved me the superior forecaster, and that I predicted 4 correctly. You predicted 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, I saddled my horse up to Bates' paddy wagon there, and didn't end up panning out for me. But it definitely can't say that. I can't say that Pete Dunne is a bad champion, and if this fabled UK show ever debuts and he's the first champion to debut on it, I can't hate on that. I just hope that Bate isn't lost amongst the shuffle as I'm sorry, that Dunne isn't lost among the shuffle as Bate was. So time will just have to tell.
True facts. Also, it is worth mentioning that although we do not have the full Facebook group tally in front of us right now, Beanbags called a perfect game in terms of Backlash, and I don't know how he did it. I'm assuming shenanigans are involved since he is the keeper of the tally. I believe there's an asterisk next to that perfect batting average.
Yes, as JBL would say, an asterisk.
Yes. But until we can prove the depths of Beanbags' villainy, we have to acknowledge that he predicted Backlash perfectly.
Indeed. Congratulations, Beanbags. Coming for you, son.
And with that, on that bombshell, that is it for this week's episode. All that is left is win and fail of the week. So, Adam, what was your win from this week?
I loved that promo between Heyman and Finn Balor. It was both eerily familiar to what I've heard from Heyman in the past and completely different. The fact that he, I guess you could argue that he kind of did the same thing when Roman and Brock feuded the first time, and sort of gave credit where credit was due to Roman, but still said he would fail. Very similar platitudes were given to Finn Balor as well, though it seemed a bit more sincere this time than the last. And playing off of Finn's arguable affability and just seemingly genuineness, he feels like the most real person when he cuts his promos. I loved when he kind of flubbed a little bit and said, "Oh, sorry, let me try that again." That felt so much more genuine and easier to forgive than any other mistake in promo history, in my opinion. And I really liked it. I'm excited to see this program kind of bumped up a little bit. I hope it continues to SummerSlam because I feel like that's the better card to showcase it than Great Balls of Fire. But whatever. I mean, to see the match at any stretch at a pay-per-view would still just warm the cockles of my heart and allow me to cross yet another fantasy dream match that could potentially happen now in WWE off of my list. So I'm not going to fucking hate on it. Hate on that name all day, though. Stupid name.
Absolutely. From the live chat, Takeover Chicago was a win of the week. Also, the Henning versus Bockwinkel Las Vegas Showboat AWA title match. I cannot argue that. Also, there is a combined win and fail from the live chat for Drunk Me during Backlash, I believe. And
that was 100% win. It was 100% win.
Yeah, I can't argue that. It was a hot mess. My win of the week has to go to DIY for reasons that we have expounded upon to the utmost. Yes, just a fantastic story being told there. I cannot emphasize that enough. How's about fails?
So my fail of the week has to be at the very last seconds of Raw, Angle looking directly in Balor's eyes and saying, I'm going to book Bray Wyatt versus Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor for next week's Raw. And I was hoping that we start to get like affable, genuine Finn again. Like, actually, it's Balor. Just real quick, small little, didn't have to be too much more focus on it. But unfortunately, we didn't. Balor just said, that sounds great. And I'm going to nod. And then we got the weirdest close-up of Angle watching the TV with one eye while also staring at Finn Balor and saying, I'm the best GM that ever was. But that was more entertaining than a failure. So specifically mispronouncing Finn Balor's name straight to his face.
All right. From the live chat, we have got a fail for Jinder Mahal winning the WWE Championship. What happened with DIY? Also, Naito destroying the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, which, I mean, yeah, he's breaking that shit apart piece by piece. It's kind of hilarious. Also fail for smart fans, and there's also a fail for the close-ups of Jinder's creepy muscles. I'm very much in line with that. I don't like seeing that man with his shirt off. It's terrifying.
Yeah, he's got this weird skin texture that I can't quite describe, but it's so off-putting.
It's the veins.
But it's also kind of craggy. It's also kind of craggy and rocky, like on the chest and ab area. Like he looks like he's been 3D printed out of something, and I don't like it.
No, just fighting the suit and the turban forever.
Please, or like one of those, like do the Green Man gimmick. I'd be so into that. Fucking pull it straight out of fucking It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, please, or any other variation of that morph suit. Just stop showing your weird ass body, man. And your face. I'm going to put the face on there too. Your facial expressions are also terrifying. Been the fuel of many a nightmare for the past couple weeks.
And also his hair, like I feel like he has too much on his head now.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it doesn't work.
I would agree. Just everything about you, man. Just change literally everything about you, and you'll be far more pleasant to look at.
Can we just swap out Jinder for Rusev and act like nothing happened?
Yes, we can. As far as I recall, Rusev actually made a proclamation that he deserves a title match at Money in the Bank. So I don't see why we just don't give him the title.
There actually was a fairly interesting theory that we've all been worked by Jinder and Rusev. Like they never actually broke up. This was all planned from the beginning. Rusev disappears in the background while Jinder does the heavy lifting. And then Rusev comes back, gets the title match. They get in the ring, and Jinder just lies down. I would kind of love that for just the long con aspect. I know there's not a great history of such shenanigans a la Finger Poke of Doom, but I feel like WWE could survive it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if they do it better than the Finger Poke of Doom, then there's because the thing is they built up the Finger Poke of Doom as like this huge fucking epic match that we've never seen before. If they just have fucking if they have fucking like what's his name, Rusev, thank you, my brain,
Rusev.
thank you very much.
Yes, his full name, damn it.
Sorry, handsome, spectacular, brute from Bulgaria, Rusev. If he was like a mystery opponent for fucking gender to fight, I feel like that would make it a lot better. Like, but if you build both guys as like, oh my God, this is the match you have to see, and then finger poke, yeah, you're kind of fucking yourself in that scenario.
For sure. Oh yeah, my fail. Fuck you, Randy. And that is all we have time for. Of course, you can find us at Fans Talk Podcast on Twitter. You can also find us at our homepage, fanstalkprowrestling.com, that has links for everywhere you can find us on social media, as well as a Facebook group. We'd really encourage you to join the Facebook group, especially because we run the live chats for the pay-per-views, takeovers. Sometimes we run them for Raw and SmackDown and NXT as events come up. So if you want to get part of that, if you want to just sit down with us and talk some wrestling, we'd love for that to happen. You can also rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or any other podcast you can find us on. Leave us a review, a rating. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you would maybe want to see change, and maybe we can help you out with that. Next week, we're going to continue to build up to Extreme Rules. In fact, I believe that will be the official Extreme Rules preview for Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. But until that happens, for Adam, Garvin, everybody in the live chat, my name is Nick. We see you next time here on Fans Talk Pro Wrestling.